After the Jerusalem leaders discussed with Paul and came up with a demarcation, an agreement that Paul would go to the Gentile regions, and they sent him out with good fellowship, we read this in Galatians chapter 2, verse 10. He says, "Only they asked us to remember the poor, the very thing that I was eager to do." Now, sometimes in our zeal to build the church, we can turn the church into an empire rather than the gathering of people who are in need. And when we do this, we fail in our effort to take the gospel to those in darkness, and we will end up stifling the ministry that we hope to build. Focusing all our efforts on numerical growth for the sake of growth is a downward spiral. Now, I have to admit that some have done well at building a large empire, but they, in doing so, have lost the heart for the people. And this is a sad and unfortunate failure. And it does not at all follow the ministry that Jesus demonstrated. It doesn't follow the heart of Jesus. For a second, let us consider Jesus' ministry. He spent 3 years primarily preparing a handful of men for the work of building the church. The church, which is the Ekklesia, it refers to the called-out assembly of God's people. The church is not a literal building, and neither is she an empire to the glory of man. Let us consider for a second the model of ministry that Jesus demonstrated to the disciples, and we can understand it better. You see, the disciples observed as he ministered to the people. Matthew describes the heart of Jesus this way, and let me read you some verses from Matthew. It says in Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 36, "And Jesus went throughout all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion for them, because they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd." In Matthew chapter 14, verse 14, it says, "When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick." And then in Matthew chapter 15, 32, we read, "Then Jesus called his disciples to him and said, 'I have compassion on the crowd because they have been with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. I am unwilling to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way.'" We got to notice something here. Jesus had compassion for the multitudes. This characterized his ministry. And because of his great compassion, he cared for the needs of the people. Yes, he did teach them the truth of the kingdom, the gospel. Yet because of his compassion, he also healed their diseases and afflictions and fed the hungry. The model that Jesus demonstrated for ministry was not one of empire building, but of ministry to people. This means compassionate care for the true needs of the masses. Of course, the greatest needs are spiritual. However, the church cannot overlook the physical and emotional needs of people, for ministry is to the total person. It includes the body, the soul, and the spirit. The Jerusalem leaders and Paul clearly got the picture of true ministry to the church. By definition, the church is the people of God. They are divinely placed under the care of the leaders of the local church. Remember that Jesus charged Peter to care for the sheep, for his sheep, that Jesus' sheep. And this degree of care only happens when there is love for the people. Unfortunately, today, many have moved the church to a business model patterned by the system of this world. It's one where bigger is better, where numerical growth is the symbol of success. The problem with this is not that large or numerical growth is bad. The problem is that the heart of the church can become corrupted and improperly focused. It is a subtle, deceptive, and dangerous trap to love the empire more than we love the people. Let us in the church guard our hearts against such a dangerous thing. Let us love the Lord our God and the people who comprise his body, the church. Jesus demonstrated this for us, and we see this heart of compassion in the early church. Yes, great growth did happen through the ministry of the Jerusalem leaders and Paul, but it happened not because they were trying to build an empire, but because they ministered with hearts of compassion for the people.